Oh, good morning. My name is Reverend Lezli. I am the Associate Minister here at New Vision Center, and it is my delight to give the message this Sunday morning that is a holiday in basically every religion that we could find, and probably several that we didn't look up. And for the pagans among us, we're kind of halfway between Ostar and Beltane, so we just make it a party the whole time, right? I think that's how that rolls. When we were doing our visioning, which we do for these big services, one of the things that kept coming up is this idea of either or. Either I'm spiritual or I'm Christian. Either I'm religious or I'm metaphysical. Either I'm deeply into my spiritual practice or I'm secular. Either I believe in science or I believe in God. And it kept feeling like everywhere we reached out, there was this, I have to pick, I have to choose. And so our message today is called Transcending the Either Or. Transcending the Either Or. See, Easter is both an absolutely glorious Sunday for us every year. I mean, look at this sanctuary. It is overflowing. They had to put out extra chairs. And we know that many, many people are joining us on the online campus at the same time. And what a delight it is to be called together to celebrate the goodness of life. And another thing I'm aware of that's always kind of hanging out, like the sock puppet in the back of my mind, is no matter where we head with these traditional holidays, is it's going to be too much of something to some people and not enough of that same something for some of the other people. And one of you will think I did it just right. And I thank that one of you right now. Growing up here in North America, many of us came up with some form of Christianity. And so we have all these memories attached to Easter. And growing up here in North America, many of us did not grow up attached to some form of Christianity, and they have a history of feeling left out of this particular experience and feeling like their religion maybe didn't get the attention. I don't know anybody with cute Passover bunny ears. You can borrow Bryn's if you feel like you missed out. And yet, here we are. It's Sunday at New Vision Center, where we practice science of mind together, a philosophy, faith tradition that literally called forth the wisdom of every faith, every idea that Ernest Holmes, our founder, could get his hands on, to call forth a new way of making those traditional texts relevant to our world now. So this is what we seek to do. How can we make space for all of that? And then we also get to put it in the context of what else we're doing this year. So our theme this year, you can't see it because we have flowers to the sky in place of our traditional banners. But our theme this year is every path leads home. Every path leads home. Every way you can walk this life is going to bring you to the center of yourself because there's nowhere else to go. Every path leads to the God of your understanding. There's no getting away from that, or the spirit of your understanding, or the universal law of your understanding, whichever feels the truest to your soul. Every path leads there. So we have our slide that shows our paths. These are the paths we've identified for this year. Some of them are anchored in this actual service, this actual center. Some of them are things that we do through our own spiritual practice as we move through. And which paths are we specifically walking in today's service? We're going to connect into connection, self-acceptance, and communion. Communion being our conscious union with the divine as self. So, as always for me, whenever we have a traditional service, a traditional religious holiday, I always ask myself, why are we still talking about these people that lived thousands of years ago? I mean, it's been a long time. We just keep talking about these same people, right? So there has got to be something absolutely genius woven into the teachings that these beloveds left for us. And in this particular day, we're talking about what Ernest Holmes would have called the master teacher, Jesus. Whatever your relationship is with Jesus, all the way from only begotten Son and my Lord and Savior to, I don't even know if he lived, but his writings seem nice. Or maybe even all the way over here with, no thank you. We're going to just set all of that down for these couple of minutes and feel into what those stories might have for us this day. And it turns out there's a lot in those stories. There's a reason they wrote 4 books about him. He did a lot of stuff. What does the Master Jesus have to tell us today? So we have to put it in a little bit of context. So Jesus, according to the stories, was a Jew of the Second Temple. So this places him in a historical context where there is an organizing body called the Pharisees. So the Pharisees' job was to be the overseers of the laws of ceremonial cleanliness and uncleanliness. Now, if you didn't grow up Jewish or if you don't know anything about Judaism, there can be a lot of confusion about what this cleanliness, uncleanliness thing is. And it's important to remember that this was a sacred and holy practice, specifically designed to remind people to be holy as God is holy. And if they, for some reason, ended up in a circumstance where they were ceremonially unclean, then they had practices that they would go through to remind themselves to stay on the path of closeness with the divine. Isn't that a beautiful practice? I think it's so lovely. And something happened to the Pharisees that happens to a lot of us, which is that after years or generations or leadership turns over, we can lose track of the spirit of the rule, the heart of the rule, and get a little caught up in the legality of the rule, divorced from the purpose of it. So this is what's going on in this story as Jesus enters the scene. The Pharisees have very real, very legitimate rules about the ways people live in their life. And Jesus didn't do it. He didn't do it. He didn't just break rules to break rules. I think it's safe to say, I don't think Jesus was a jerk. That's going to be the quote on Facebook later. Reverend Lezli, safe to say Jesus is not a jerk. But he didn't follow the rules. And as I did rereading of the text, which I do a lot on Holy Weeks, what I noticed, specifically in Mark 1 through 6 and in Luke 13, what I noticed is he didn't break all the rules. He didn't even break most of the rules. He broke rules that he felt kept him from being able to love people more completely. What do I mean by that? I mean, there are very specific rules in Judaism of the Second Temple, of the Hebrew nation, around who you can eat with. Specific washing practices before you eat and after. Who you can spend time with. Christianity, some forms of Christianity have a version of that called being equally yoked. You only spend time with people who are similar values and put similar emphasis on the divine in their life because it helps us keep to the straight and narrow. And these are beautiful and wonderful ideas until a choice comes up. There is an ill woman, very ill. She's been ill for 12 years. Reading the text, I cannot help but believe she had what I have. It says she was bent over, her spine had collapsed upon itself, and she could not look up anymore. That sounds an awful lot like what happens with ankylosing spondylitis if it's not treated properly. So I'm in the story with this lady, right? She's been going to the temple. She's never been cured. She's lived a beautifully virtuous life. She has not been cured, and she meets Jesus on the Sabbath. Now, what don't we do on the Sabbath in this culture at this time? We do no work. And for a rabbi, Jesus was a rabbi, for a rabbi, healing is work. You do not do it on the Sabbath. But here's this woman in front of him, and she is suffering. And he's a traveling rabbi, so he might not ever see her again. This is her one shot with him. And so what did he do? He healed her. How well did this go over? Not well, because he broke the rule. I mean, imagine, there's a traveling rabbi who is so charismatic and such a powerful being that people left their lives to follow him around. People did that with me. They'd be like, Lezli started a cult. And they did say that, by the way, about Jesus. They did, absolutely. But he couldn't leave a fellow human suffering when he knew he could do something about it, even if it meant breaking the rules. And this is by no means the only time he did it. He did all kinds of things. He healed the sick. He ate with sinners. He ate with Gentiles. The horror. He did not always take the time to ritually cleanse himself before and after eating if it meant it would slow down his ability to provide food for the hungry people in front of him. He did not fall for the either or. Oh, this is an interesting concept to carry into right now. In a world that feels so divided into camps of this political party and that political party, this belief about this kind of people, that belief about that kind of people, trying to pass laws about who can go in what room and wear what clothes and wear what kind of eye makeup while doing drag. No. People love to make rules and they can lose track of the point of the rules. They can lose the heart of it. And I feel like that's something that's going on in this world right now. And yet, every week, and actually many, many times every week, we return to this vision, revealing the power of love. What we're asking of ourselves and one another every time we return to that vision is to remind us to recenter in on the question, am I doing everything in my power to love the people around me more completely, more fully, more authentically, more compassionately, more graciously, more generously? Am I making that the priority of my life, or am I following rules and statutes set out by God knows who about God knows what? We can get caught up in the either or. But how can we recenter on how to love one another more fully? It's important. Reverend Anthony B. Robinson, who is a Christian minister, wrote a beautiful paper on Easter. And he said, it's important that we remember this is not a Jewish problem. It's not a Pharisee problem. It's a human problem. Making our rules and fears into our God. What if God doesn't want our careful virtue? What if God wants our reckless generosity? What if all these writings and readings we do on oneness all the time is inviting us to do that thing that Reverend Karen does all the time, which is this? How broad can we stretch our arms to make a hug big enough for the whole world? What if that is what the divine is seeking from us? And so in order to do that, we have to be willing to allow to dissolve some of those. In my world, they're like little hyphen, little slashes between the either or. We need to let those slashes fall away and recenter on what reminds us of the good in life. So if you are comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes or soften your gaze as we do a little imaginary process. So I invite you to notice in this space that is safe and loving and filled with the sounds of children and the breathing of beloveds all around us. Imagine a big U-shaped table in front of you. And on this table are things that represent everything you've ever loved through the course of your life. You may notice items from your religion of origin, from family traditions. You may notice items from places in which you've studied or dabbled or tried. There might be new agey things on there like tarot or crystals or Buddhist icons. There might be secular things on that table like an Alanis Morissette CD. Things you have loved, things that have formed who you are. And as you look at this table in your mind, you may notice some things that you have put away because you felt like they didn't fit who you're supposed to be now, but that you love and that have served you. What if you can have it all? What if you can be Jewish and science of mind and really love a great oracle card all in the same day? What if you can be a gardener and still want your husband to bring you cut flowers? What if you can truly have and be it all? And so in your mind, I invite you to consciously choose a few of these items on your table. Maybe some that you claim consciously and some that you have released in your life. Choose a few things to wrap back into your heart, to who you are now, along with the implicit permission to do this anytime you choose. And with a breath, I invite you to bring your consciousness back into this space, this physical space. I know, Spirit, I agree. She's reporting direct from the source. Science of mind, at the heart of it all, is about oneness. There's a reason it's the very first spiritual principle listed of the 10. It's about oneness. The oneness that means there is absolutely no division between me and you. That there's absolutely no division between you and the divinity of your understanding. When we know that, it doesn't matter what the rules are. We will always default to loving the person in front of us and to loving the person that's right here too. How could we not? It's divinity in form. When we are focused on oneness, we don't need to make anything wrong. We can use our discernment to choose things that are for me and things that are no thank you bites for me. That's what I always had with my kids. They had to take 2 no thank you bites, and then that was all. It's kind of funny to hear my daughter say she went on 2 dates with a gentleman, and those were her no thank you bites, and she's not going to go on date number 3. When we are open to including the all, when we are open to transcending the idea of right, wrong, either or, sacred, secular, atheist, spiritual, and we don't have to make anything wrong, we can share a beautiful message and know that whatever Spirit is talking about is beautiful and perfect right now. And celebrate the children who come in to sing with so much passion, and to celebrate going to a church that plays Pharrell music. We get to enjoy all of it, and that is what divinity is. Choosing to live a life where we love more completely, more fully with every breath makes everything in life holy ground. When we say we teach spiritual living and we live spiritual teaching, that is the intention. We love to see you on Sundays. We read your chats. Did you know that? We read your chats. We want to hear what you have to say. And, gosh, I hope you don't leave it here. I hope that you are just as loving to the people at the grocery store and in the incredibly long line at Costco. I hope that you are just as kind to your parents and your neighbors, even though invariably they will do something that causes you to want to put them back on that table. I hope you pick them back up. Because all of life is here to be a proving ground for love. All of life is here to be our holy ground. Let's take this into prayer. How good it is to just breathe into this moment. to feel the power of the music still resonating in the air and the open-heartedness of the message. To feel into these instructions embedded in this ancient sacred text. Joyful that we can accept wisdom wherever we find it. Joyful that we can have Jesus and spirituality. That we can have holiness and sacredness all smushed together. That all of it's good. That there's no part of ourself we need to reject to be enough for the one, because we already are. And so I just speak a word of blessing, of healing and love over every single beloved within the sound of my voice, knowing that this holy ground is right underneath each of our feet. And with a grateful heart, I simply call all of it good, and so it is.